Greetings, dear passengers. As you can all very clearly see, I'm Streamlined, the engine responsible for your train of thoughts. Today, let's talk about freedom. Freedom can mean a lot of things. Freedom from physical incarceration, freedom from political persecution, freedom from any sort of oppression, etc., etc. But one thing no one can deny is that freedom is important. However, these days, if you darlings engage people in some kind of discussion, either in face-to-face conversations or in an online forum, chances are talking about freedom won't exactly garner an enthusiastic response from your listeners. Indeed, the more observant passenger might already have noticed that nowadays freedom as an idea is increasingly being treated with apathy, indifference, and sometimes even scorn. And it's not just on an individual level either, because on a national and international level, the narratives of freedom versus oppression, democracy versus authoritarianism, and liberty versus tyranny is failing to resonate with the populace of both the free and the unfree world. In contemporary political language, the concept of freedom is not dissimilar to a hit classical record from a bygone era, not necessarily lacking in quality, but certainly succeeding in arousing amongst its recipients the polar opposite of affection and burning passion, exhaustion and downright frustration. The direct, on-the-ground effect of this is that the West, namely European, North American, and other like-minded democracies, are having real difficulties using the freedom versus oppression rhetoric to convince other states to become committed allies against expansionist autocracies like Russia and China, while simultaneously facing a domestic population wholly indifferent or even hostile to the freedom versus oppression message. There are several reasons why freedom as an idea is being increasingly cold-shouldered and ridiculed. To the people of the free world, having lived with freedom for most of their life, they have forgotten what it's like without it, thus forgetting just why freedom is valuable. Also, they have realized that continuously going on about freedom won't resolve any pressing real-life problem of theirs. Income inequality, racial and gender inequality, overly expensive housing prices, to name a few. Indeed, the mere mention of freedom is being increasingly seen by the populace of the free world as a synonym for our leaders are wholly incapable of resolving these real-worldly problems, so they resort to this conveniently vague concept known as freedom. Meanwhile, to the people of the unfree world, where freedom was once associated with progress and power, it is now associated with instability to match that of their own homelands, duplicity and false promises, and the hypocrisy of slaughtering with a knife with one hand and caressing the Bible with the other hand. This is mainly down to the challenges of domestic dissatisfaction in free, democratic countries, and the grievously erroneous foreign policies of states that are supposed to represent the free world, namely the brutal and uncalled for invasions of Libya, Iraq, and Afghanistan by the United States and their allies. Those invasions didn't only shatter the soil of those countries, they had also, in effect, shattered the impression of freedom to the populace of the unfree world. The interesting thing, dear passengers, is that freedom as an idea has never promised itself to be an all-encompassing solution to all worldly problems, or a remedy to all the failures of human nature. Freedom is merely a status of existence that guarantees the individual and the society against something much, much worse, namely the brutalities and barbarous nature of authoritarian regimes. And whatever the failings of freedom, doubting and ridiculing freedom suits nobody better than those expansionist dictators, namely Russia and China, who are quite ready to introduce their power hunger and bloodthirst upon a world disinterested in cherishing their freedom. Dear passengers, freedom never promised to solve every single problem. Freedom is just a shield against something much worse. People cannot thrive with shields, but people are doomed without them. At this point in time, where expansionist dictators are ready to unleash their horrors upon us, we should be doing all in our power to safeguard our freedom instead of continuously doubting it. And that, dear passengers, brings us to the end of our journey today. Don't forget to hop aboard my next train, and I will see you all then.